There are certain stories that the world thinks it already knows. The headline, the scandal, the dramatic fall from grace, and then silence. Most people remember Elin Nordegren as the quiet, beautiful Swedish woman standing in the shadow of one of the greatest athletes who ever lived. They remember the Thanksgiving night in 2009 when everything shattered. They remember the divorce, the reported $100 million settlement, and then, nothing. She simply vanished from the public conversation, as if the world had moved on and taken her story with it. But here is what most people never stop to ask. What happened to Elin Nordegren after the cameras stopped following her? What did she build when no one was watching? Who did she become when the world finally looked away? Because the woman living her life today is not the woman the tabloids buried under their headlines. She is something far more remarkable, and when you see the full picture of where she is now and what she has quietly accomplished, you will understand why taking a moment to truly look at her story is absolutely worth your time. Elin Nordegren was born on January 1, 1980, in Stockholm, Sweden, into a family that valued substance over spectacle. Her mother was a respected politician who served in Sweden's government at a senior level, and her father was a well-regarded radio journalist. From her earliest years, Elin grew up in a home where hard work, intellectual discipline, and privacy were not just encouraged, they were the foundation of everything. There were no chasing of cameras, no hunger for recognition. The Nordegren household was grounded, serious, and deeply private by nature. As a young woman, Elin studied diligently, worked part-time jobs, and occasionally did some modeling for Swedish publications, though she never pursued it seriously. She was not a woman driven by ambition for fame. She was driven by something quieter, a desire for a meaningful, honest life. That simplicity would later become both her greatest strength and the thing that made her betrayal all the more painful. Her path to America was not glamorous. It was practical. After finishing high school, she took a job in a clothing store, where she happened to meet Mia Parnevik, the wife of Swedish professional golfer Jesper Parnevik. Impressed by Elin's warmth, reliability, and calm demeanor, Mia offered her a position as a nanny for the family's children. Elin accepted, packed her bags, and moved to Florida. She had no particular plan beyond doing good work and living honestly. She certainly had no plan to fall in love with the most famous golfer on the planet. Through the Parnevik family's social circle, Elin was gradually introduced to the world of professional golf and the celebrities who inhabited it. That is how she first encountered Tiger Woods, not at some glamorous party or exclusive event, but through the ordinary, overlapping world of people who knew the same people. Tiger was, at that point in history, arguably the most dominant athlete alive. He had already collected multiple major championships, and his name had grown beyond sport into something closer to mythology. He was a global brand, a cultural phenomenon, and a man who seemed to operate on a different plane from everyone else. And yet, when Tiger first noticed Elin, she was notably unimpressed. According to those who knew her at the time, she had absolutely no interest in the chaos that surrounded elite athletes. She had watched enough of that world from a comfortable distance while working for the Parneviks, and nothing about it appealed to her. It reportedly took Tiger months of persistence before she agreed to go on a single date. That detail alone tells you everything you need to know about who Elin Nordegren was before the world decided to define her by someone else's failures. When she did finally open her heart, the relationship moved with surprising sincerity. They dated quietly, traveled privately, and in 2003, Tiger proposed during a trip to South Africa at a breathtakingly beautiful private game reserve. In October 2004, they married in Barbados at the Sandy Lane Resort, a venue so exclusive that dozens of security personnel were stationed around the property to keep the press at bay. For Elin, the grandeur of the wedding was not the point. What mattered was the man and the life she believed they were building together. In the years that followed, Elin became one half of what many called the golden couple of professional sports. But her role was deliberately invisible. She gave no interviews, appeared at no talk shows, and made no attempts to leverage her position for personal fame. While Tiger's face was on billboards, television screens and magazine covers around the world, Elin was at home, raising their daughter Sam, who was born in 2007, and their son Charlie, who arrived in 2009, and quietly managing the domestic life that existed behind the glittering public image. She was described by those who knew her as someone who genuinely missed the anonymity of an ordinary life. She missed walking into a grocery store unrecognized. She missed having conversations without someone nearby hoping to overhear something quotable. The weight of being Tiger Woods' wife was not something she wore lightly, even if she wore it with extraordinary composure. Behind the polished exterior was a woman who had traded the simplicity she loved for a life lived entirely under glass. Still, she believed in the marriage. She believed in the family. There was no reason not to. From everything she could see, the foundation was solid. Then came the night that changed everything. On November 27, 2009, in the early hours of Thanksgiving weekend, Tiger Woods crashed his SUV into a fire hydrant and a tree just outside their Windermere, Florida home. What initially appeared to be a minor accident quickly unraveled into something far more complicated. Reports emerged that Elin had discovered suspicious messages on Tiger's phone earlier that evening, messages that suggested an affair. What followed was a confrontation, a heated argument, and a chaotic sequence of events that ended with Tiger unconscious beside his vehicle and a media firestorm beginning to build on the horizon. Within days, the full scale of Tiger's infidelity became public. Women came forward one after another. Text messages were produced. Voicemails were played on entertainment news programs. The number of alleged affairs kept climbing, and with each new revelation, the image that Tiger had spent years constructing, disciplined, devoted, the embodiment of focus and integrity, collapsed publicly and completely. The backlash was swift and severe. Corporate sponsors who had built campaigns around Tiger's carefully managed image began cutting ties. Major endorsement deals evaporated. A man who had once been considered the safest, most marketable athlete in the world suddenly found himself a cautionary tale. His world ranking fell. His tournament results suffered. And the marriage that had once looked like a fairy tale was quietly, irreversibly dying. What made Elin's response so striking was not what she said. It was what she chose not to say. In a media culture that rewards public outrage and celebrates the spectacle of betrayal, Elin Nordegren went completely silent. She did not call a press conference. She did not sell her side of the story to a tabloid. She did not appear on a talk show in a carefully chosen outfit designed to signal strength. She simply disappeared from the public conversation and got on with the private work of grief, decision-making, and protecting her children. When she finally did speak, in a single controlled interview with People magazine, her words were careful, honest, and completely devoid of performance. She said she had been blindsided. She had never suspected. She had been home with her pregnancies, focused on her children and her family, and she had simply trusted her husband. The word betrayal, she said, was not even strong enough to capture what she felt. Her whole world, as she had understood it, had never actually existed in the way she believed. And yet, even in that raw honesty, she refused to perform hatred. She spoke about forgiveness, not as something she had achieved, but as something she was working toward. She acknowledged needing therapy. She admitted there were days when getting out of bed felt impossible. But she was clear that she had no interest in becoming a symbol of victimhood. She had a life to rebuild, and she intended to rebuild it on her own terms. In August 2010, the divorce was finalized. The settlement was widely reported to be in the region of $100 million, though the exact figures were never officially confirmed by either party. A shared custody arrangement for Sam and Charlie was established, described by those with knowledge of the situation as respectful and genuinely child-focused. Elin's priority throughout the entire process was not financial leverage or public vindication. It was her children's stability and their ability to grow up as normally as possible given the extraordinarily abnormal circumstances of their parents' split. The paparazzi continued to follow her. Photographers camped outside her neighborhood. Every public appearance she made, a school pickup, a walk on the beach, a trip to the grocery store, was captured, published, and analyzed for emotional clues. Was she smiling? Did she look sad? Had she changed? The media reduced her, as it so often does with women caught in the wreckage of a famous man's scandals, to a symbol: the wronged wife, the dignified ex, the cautionary tale. But behind those labels was a real human being quietly doing the hard, unglamorous work of rebuilding. What Elin did next is the part of the story that genuinely surprises people. She went back to school. Not a cooking class. Not a wellness retreat. Not a lifestyle brand launch designed to capitalize on her name recognition. She enrolled at Rollins College in Winter Park, Florida, and committed herself to a full academic degree in psychology. She sat in classrooms with students who were years younger than her. She completed assignments, wrote papers, attended lectures, and did the work. And she did not simply show up, she excelled. In 2014, Elin Nordegren graduated from Rollins College with a 3.96 GPA. She earned her bachelor's degree in psychology and was recognized with the Outstanding Senior Award, given not just for academic performance but for character and contribution to the college community. At her graduation ceremony, she gave a speech about resilience, gratitude, and the gift of being allowed to grow in an environment that valued learning over celebrity. It was a quietly extraordinary moment. A woman who had once been introduced to the world as a model, and a golf star's wife standing at a podium having earned recognition entirely on her own intellectual merit. Psychology was not a random choice. For someone who had spent years trying to understand how her reality had been so thoroughly hidden from her, who had needed therapy to process the aftermath of public betrayal, who had watched her own mental health tested to its limits, studying the human mind and emotional behavior was a profoundly personal pursuit. It gave her framework, vocabulary, and a growing sense of purpose that had nothing to do with Tiger Woods or golf or Thanksgiving night 2009. At the same time, Elin was also demonstrating a sharp and serious interest in real estate, and not just as a passive investor. She began making significant and strategic property decisions that showed genuine business acumen. She purchased and renovated properties in Florida, approaching the projects with the same discipline and attention to detail she had brought to her academic work. She was not dabbling. She was building. Her personal life also quietly evolved. She entered into a relationship with billionaire businessman Chris Klein, and for a time the two were a genuinely happy couple by all accounts. Tragically, Klein died in a helicopter crash in 2019, which was yet another devastating blow for a woman who had already weathered more public and private grief than most people face in a lifetime. She mourned privately, as she had always processed the most painful chapters of her life, away from cameras and without public performance. Later, Elin found love again with Jordan Cameron, a former NFL tight end, and the two welcomed a son named Arthur together, adding another chapter to a life that continued to grow and evolve despite everything that had tried to derail it. Today, Elin Nordegren lives in a way that would genuinely surprise those who only know her from the 2009 headlines. She is a mother of 3 children who by all accounts are being raised with exactly the kind of grounded, private, purposeful values she herself was raised with in Stockholm. She is a college graduate whose academic achievement stands entirely independent of her former marriage. She is a businesswoman with a serious and growing real estate portfolio. She is a woman who, after being publicly defined by someone else's choices, made the deliberate and courageous decision to define herself entirely on her own. She has not launched a podcast. She has not written a tell-all memoir. She has not traded her privacy for a reality television platform or an Instagram following. She has simply lived, and in doing so, built something real, meaningful, and entirely her own. What Elin Nordegren's story ultimately demonstrates is something that the media cycle, with its hunger for dramatic storylines and revenge narratives, almost never manages to capture. That the most powerful response to public humiliation is not retaliation. It is transformation. It is the quiet, unglamorous, deeply personal work of deciding who you want to be and then becoming that person regardless of what the world expects from you. She was once introduced to the world as Tiger Woods' wife. She was then reintroduced as Tiger Woods' wronged ex-wife. But neither of those introductions ever came close to capturing who Elin Nordegren actually is. A woman of remarkable discipline, genuine intellectual curiosity, extraordinary resilience, and the rare and admirable ability to take the worst chapter of her life and turn it into the foundation for something better. The world watched her fall. Very few noticed her rise. But she rose anyway. Quietly, purposefully, and completely on her own terms. And that, more than any scandal or settlement figure, Is the story worth remembering?